might even, help change the royal family. And she did say that in June, when I met her, that she felt that his advisor, Peter Mandelson, was just exactly what the royal family needed to help advise them and change their attitudes to the media.
I know he ought.
The parade route, which was originally to be only a fraction of the length that it will be, and was changed in response to crowd estimates that took it...
It's such an enormous crowd. So yesterday at their barracks, apparently soldiers threw artificial flowers and rolled up newspapers at them to see what their reaction would be, to ensure that they would remain calm if the crowd did not.
The Welsh Guards, part of this procession. This ceremony has been described as a unique ceremony for a unique person. Buckingham Palace and the royal establishment here, as you might expect, has a complete set of plans for everyone who is a member of the family, but because she no longer carried the HRH title, they no longer had contingency plans for her. That was one of the reasons that it was delayed for a full week. When you see that casket coming on this procession and these crowds turn out, it almost seems inadequate to say that it is Shakespearean. It goes beyond that.
It is inadequate, but there's so much to it. The royal standard that you see there has got, just as it did in Shakespeare's Henry V, the fleur-de-lis of France as part of the standard. Now, we haven't had any possessions in France since 1558, but nevertheless, that doesn't mean that anything has to change with the flag.
On top of the coffin, white lilies, Diana's favorite flowers.
I think you must ask Tina about that. She's more likely to know.
Yes, white lilies were her favorite flowers, and it's certainly what she would have wanted.
Let's just absorb the moment here.
The noises we hear in the background are actually sobs coming from people who are gathered. Many have spent 3 nights here.
Well, the utter reality of it all becomes crystal clear when this cortege passes, obviously. And they think about Diana at the height of her life, 36 years old, transcendent beauty, struggling to find some happiness. And then this.
I think the image burned on the minds of many people most vividly is Princess Diana, mother of 2 young sons, William, 15, and Harry, next week, 13.
No, she will burn in the public mind forever as a perennial, as 36 forever, and any flaws in her character, any criticisms of her character are all been expunged by the tragedy and the untimeliness of her death.
Andrew, do you think that there will be any time for young William and Harry now, after all of this and all of the discussion about the attention of the press, the paparazzi, members of the royal family, that there will be any immunity for them from that for a period of time?
Well, there's an unwritten deal done with editors of national newspapers that they will not intrude into the children's education. One can only hope and pray that Prince William does not now inherit his mother's position as the #1 media interest figure, and they then break this agreement. If that does happen, then who's to say he might well go the same way as her? It would be just impossibly tragic if that did.
He already has an intense dislike for the press.
And one that is only likely to have been hugely increased by the events of the last week.
We're hearing the tenor bell from Westminster Abbey toll half muffled every minute during the procession. Andrew, what can you tell us about the Welsh Guards?
The 8 guardsmen, 4 on each side of the coffin as they march and 2 behind, are from the elite household regiment, the Welsh Guard, which was formed in 1915 during the Great War. It served with enormous distinction across northern Europe in the Second World War and in every other major field of theatre of conflict since then. It is close to the heart of the Prince of Wales, and the Princess visited it on many occasions. The Prince of Wales is the Colonel-in-Chief. It's won Victoria Crosses in several of the most arduous battlefields of the century.
And Richard Williams, the leading guardsman, is quite a hero in this country.
He's quite a hero. All of the guardsmen are over 6 feet. Richard Williams is a little bit taller than that, and he's much loved in the regiment. He won a military cross, the next gallantry medal down from the Victoria Cross, when he saved 100 Cambodian villagers when he was a volunteer for the United Nations Expeditionary Force in Cambodia in 1993. This medal was given him personally by the Prince of Wales, and he has been chosen specifically to lead the procession, or at least lead the Guards detachment of the procession.
NBC's Keith Miller is along the cortege route. Keith?
Well, we are witnessing an historical moment. The gun carriage is slowly making its way from Kensington Palace, the former home of Princess Diana. The crowd's about 8 deep here, very solemn. At least at the beginning, it was a little bit noisy. It has quieted down as the funeral procession slowly makes its way by.
Resting gently on the standard which drapes the coffin, these white lilies from Prince Charles and Sons Prince William and Prince Harry. Davies, a question rippling through the funeral cortege route has to be, will they or won't they?
Well, I believe, as a result of yesterday, Bernie, that Prince Charles will walk behind the gun carriage, and I also believe that Prince William and Harry will walk with him. They were remarkable yesterday, Bernie. They warmed everyone's hearts. They worked the crowds there nearly as well as their mother's done 100 times before, 1,000 times before. And I feel they will want to take the last mile with their mother walking behind the gun carriage. No decision has been taken. It was going to be left to see how they could handle today. And that is why Charles said, we will wait to see how they're taking the day. If they can hack it, they will walk behind, and I think they probably will.
Along the cortege route, our reporters are watching what you are watching. Donna Kelly.
Bernie, the crowd fell absolutely silent as Princess Diana's casket went by us just a couple of minutes ago. And the crowd, immediately after it would go by, much of the crowd started to move and to follow the casket down the street. And so many people tried to get pictures of the casket as it went by in the funeral cortege. One of the people who was with us to watch, her name is Cecile. Cecile, when she went by, your thoughts?
Great sadness. So the loss of somebody who I believe was very, very special. And I think she showed us that kindness can become a way of life. And what I would like to say, that I feel that if each one of us who's watching, who's here today, could do one act of kindness for somebody, maybe someone they hadn't thought about before, that would be a tremendous monument to her, and it would be a living thing that maybe would become a way of life.
And that is something the princess would probably like, because she acted with such kindness and compassion. Bernie?
Donna Kelly along the funeral cortege route. If you are just joining us, the cortege has moved away from Kensington Palace, where Princess Diana lived. It is moving along London's historic streets, advancing on St. James's Palace. the procession moves here in London, the military precision is, if you will, very, very precise. The soldiers are marching at what's called dead march step, 70 paces per minute. Richard Blystone, everyone involved in this funeral cortege, officially, these soldiers, these horses, has been rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed.
That's right, Bernie. Certainly the British, we have come to expect the best of this sort of thing for the British. Curiously enough, they were not very good at it as recently as the middle of the last century, when there were many complaints during a royal funeral that the British don't do that sort of thing very well. They certainly do it well now. The men whom you see walking on either side of the casket there, the men in red with the bearskin hats, are members of the Welsh Guards. Diana, you will remember, was Princess of Wales, married to the Prince of Wales. The mounted man on the right-hand side of your screen, well, you've just missed him now, was the sergeant commanding. A couple of mounted men in the parade, and then trace bearers walking along beside. The 8 men flanking the coffin will be the ones who will carry the casket. Bernie?
The funeral cortege now passing along the southern edge of Hyde Park. Bill Delaney is at St. James's Palace along the road.
Very early in the morning. What brought you out here?
We stayed out last night. And we just wanted to get a space by the front so we could see it when she went by.
Why is that important to you to be here today?
Just to pay my last respects, say goodbye.
What did she mean to you?
She was very kind and very generous, and she gave her time to other people. And that's a lot to give.
What did she mean to you're just a young woman. What did she mean to your generation?
She was young and she was, I don't know, she was just a young princess. That's...
Are you related?
I'm a mother, yes.
I guess that's a relation.
yes. No, it's very moving, and I think maybe more so for the younger ones who it came as a shock, and it's brought home the fact that we're all kind of mortal, here today, gone tomorrow. I think especially so for teenagers, the younger ones.
CNN and CNN International welcome to the coverage Christopher Hancock, a former British government official who is an expert on protocol and ceremonies. He has helped plan extensively occasions of state. Christopher, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where are we now, and how is this unfolding?
It's unfolding very much as I had anticipated. For me personally, it brings back memories of Churchill's funeral and of the funeral of Lord Mountbatten. When we met yesterday, I spoke to you and I told you that there's a sense of grief which catches you as the cortege comes into view and precedes it a little. And watching the faces on the screen, I can see it happening today. There's that something that you can't put your finger on it at all. It's just something that precedes the coffin and catches everyone. Even the most hardened viewer of royal ceremonial is caught. And I've been watching the crowd, and as I said, there have been tears in the silence. And this was the case with the ceremonies that I dealt with before. It's now passing through Kensington Gardens area and Hyde Park.
Christopher, as we watch,
yes,
are we not seeing elements that have a very rich British history?
Royal funerals in this format, in fact, are a product of the 20th century, starting with Queen Victoria's funeral in 1901. Before that, members of the royal family were usually buried at night. But this did cause problems, and the classic problem and the interesting precedent which is being set here is at Queen Victoria's funeral, it was February, it was cold, it was icy, and the horses couldn't cope with the cobbles. And Edward VII, the new king, ordered that sailors should draw the gun carriage along, and this has been the case until now. This is a break from precedent. This is a new modern look. It's horses, not sailors, that are drawing the coffin today.
Christopher, we're going to check in with Fionnuala Sweeney. She is at St. James's Palace a short while ago. Nicholas Davies and I were wondering about whether or not Prince Charles and Princes William and Harry would follow in. Fionnuala?
Well, the latest information that we have, Bernie, and that is, of course, subject to change, but the latest information that we have is that when the funeral cortege comes down the mall here and stops to my right at St. James's Palace, it will be joined by Prince Charles, Prince William, the Duke of Edinburgh, and Diana's brother, Earl Spencer. That's the latest information we have. Prince Harry, 12 years old, apparently not going to make that last mile following his mother's coffin down towards Westminster Abbey. So just once again, the latest information we have, and subject to change, is that Prince Charles, Prince William, Duke of Edinburgh, and Earl Spencer, Diana's brother, who is expected here imminently, will follow the coffin down the last mile, through Horse Guards to the right, and then through on to Westminster Abbey. Bernie.
Christopher Hancock, the tenor bell every 60 seconds as the cortege moves down the streets here.
Yes, that's correct. It's a normal practice which has been, in fact, employed for about 700 years. It's recorded that at the funeral of Queen Elizabeth I, the same bell was heard marking the days of her life. And it's a normal practice that I would have expected to take place. If the Princess of Wales had become Queen and this had been a slightly bigger funeral, then Big Ben would have also tolled throughout the procession, as it did for King George VI and Winston Churchill, but not for Lord Mountbatten.
Christopher, let me interrupt you for just a moment to make note of some very well-known faces, as many more will be coming. Actors Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, director Steven Spielberg, and earlier you may have seen Sting. And also Nicole Kidman.
Sorry.
Ministers, ex-Prime Ministers.
Former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and her husband, Sir Dennis.
Splendor and rejoicing.